Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. But it's been a good week.
Yeah, it has been a good week. It's been a creative week.
Creative week. Oh, that is a perfect transition.
Oh, it is.
Today's episode. So, hi everyone.
Hello.
It's us again. And we're going to talk about our creative week. So, Joy, what did you do this week?
So, I've been working on formatting, which may not sound very creative, and sometimes I feel like it isn't. But it really is. You get to kind of tweak your manuscript and make it look the way that you want it to look. And so that's the creative aspect. And I've been interested to see how much other stuff comes into formatting. There's a lot of math involved, and hey, most of us writers are just not math people. So that's a challenge. There's margins and gutters and tabs and oh my. Anyway, yeah. But it's fun, and there is the creative aspect to it, and I feel like as I get more comfortable with it, I feel like I'm going to find the creativity in the math involved in it. And so I'm excited to learn more about it.
A very positive outlook you have there.
I know. I may be trying to be a good influence on, a certain child who does not care for math.
Aww. Well, maybe that child will listen to this podcast episode and be like, math might not be that bad.
I know.
I just ruined it by saying that. So,
Probably.
Sorry.
That's okay.
She cannot hear this episode anymore.
You were right the first time. But anyway, continue. So tell us about your creative week.
I am still prepping for a poetry and art project that I'm going to be working with one of my mentors when I was in college, and now she's my friend, and it's wonderful. And I don't know if I already told you guys about that, but if I did before, I'm still working on prepping that particular project, which will be coming next month, which is just a few weeks away. So this month has been flying by for me particularly.
Yeah.
But it's been a very good, very productive month, and I'm pleased with what's happened in it. So,
lots of things going on. That is so true. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, lots of things.
Yeah.
So let us get on into the topic. Today we are going to be talking about the benefits of short stories and short fiction. Mm-hmm. So specifically because of what we are going to be discussing, we're talking about fiction that is going to be around 8,000 words or less. So flash fiction, short stories, things like that. So Joy, what's your first benefit?
All right, so we kind of broke this up into three different types of benefits that we can get from short fiction. And the first section are the craft benefits. Okay, so for example, you can really practice some specific craft techniques when writing short fiction. And why this is such a good thing is obviously this is a shorter piece of work, so you're not working on a novel that you're going to be working on for a year or however long it takes you to write a novel. This is something that could potentially be completed in a week or even less, depending on how long you're making this. So it's so much easier for you to get to the end and see the results of the work that you're putting in. Okay, so for instance, when I wrote one of my short stories, Dream Debris, I did a huge no-no. You are not supposed to do this for short stories, but I did it intentionally to learn how to do it, and that was to change points of view. Okay, so I had two characters whose points of view I was going back and forth between, and I actually entered this short story in a competition, and it didn't win, and I'm pretty sure. And I actually worked with an editor on this, and he told me too. He's like, they're gonna not like this because you're not supposed to do this. And I was like, I know, I'm taking a risk with it, but there was a purpose behind it, and I learned something from it. And then I kind of loved the way that it turned out. So I was stubborn and stuck with it. But the point is, in a whole lot quicker period of time, I was able to learn how to go back and forth in the voice of these two characters telling the story. So
absolutely. And in that particular short story too, I think you practiced with language or accents, was it not?
Yes, I did. I forgot about that. Yes, I did. I really struggled with that because it's one of those things where you don't want to do too much, but then you're not sure if you've done enough, and then you want it to be fitting to the time period. And with my two different characters, they came from two different parts of Scotland. And so that was a whole different thing. Like, they each had their own different dialects, and that's part of what made their voices distinct. And so I wanted to make that clear without having way too much and just not being easy to read. So
yeah, absolutely. For me, I had a short story that I had a first line that I just loved. I loved that daggone first line. And and I wanted to try to make a story out of it, and I thought that it would be an interesting way to see if I could pants. So
there you go.
I don't know. Never tried to pants a short story before. I did try to pants my first novel, which no one will ever see, and that might be why. But I found out real quickly that I was not going to be able to pants a novel, and so I did go into some sort of loose outline at some point in time. I think it was Act 2. But
we may want to explain pants. So that is like, you haven't really sat down and made an outline of what you're going to write or whatever, just in case anyone hasn't heard that term before.
Yeah.
Pants is like, you're just kind of like sitting down and you're just
going
to
the seat of your pants.
Exactly. So there, continue.
Yes, actually. And for this short story, sometimes people have characters or a plot or a world or something in mind whenever they are sitting down and gonna pants a story. I, however, only had that first line. I did not have characters and so on and so forth. So as I started writing, it all kind of started fleshing out and everything. And eventually I got to about halfway through. I had figured out who my characters were, what their situation was, what their conflict was, all of this stuff. But it had taken me quite a bit. So I found out that I'm not quite the pantser that I was hoping that I would be. But what I did find out in the revision process of that short story is how structure can be so important. And I actually ended up doing some flashbacks in the short story. So I practiced with flashbacks because I had never done that before, and tried to learn how to do that well. So I still won't say that I have perfected the art, but I did learn some things about flashbacks and character development.
That's so neat. And yeah, I mean, short stories are such a great way to practice story structure, to see story structure in a very compact, condensed format. And if you're trying to study this in novels, it gets very overwhelming. Yes. Because if you're reading a novel to study it, number one, that takes a while because it's a novel. It's a lot longer. And yeah, so this is something that you can do. It's very hands-on, but in a shorter time period.
Yeah, and let's just be real here for a second. I'm about to have another birthday coming soon, and I'm feeling super mortal at this moment. And I don't have time to learn the things that I know I need to learn in order to be a good author and to tell a story well. And so these short stories and these short fiction avenues are ways for me to learn something faster so I can implement it well in a bigger project. And I think that is the huge draw of short fiction for me. Now, I understand, too, that in short fiction, you're not going to be able to study things like subplot threads and multiple point of views and things like that are integral to a novel. But if you can get some of these other questions out of the way and become proficient in these other areas, then maybe whenever you are studying plot threads and subplots and multiple characters and things like that, these things won't clutter your mind or clutter your project, so you can see those other things more clearly.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Well,
Another
I'm
thing.
full of them.
You are. Another thing that that short fiction can really help with is it can help you in world building or developing characters that you're working on for larger pieces of fiction. Okay, so my example for this is my fantasy series. I laugh about this all the time, and I tell this all the time. You've probably already heard it, but I never wanted to write fantasy, but I had these fairies that were sitting on my shoulder, and they kept talking to me, and they wouldn't stop, okay? So I know that I have this fantasy series coming, and I pretty much know a lot of the details and all of that sort of thing. But I also know that I'm about a year away from actually sitting down and putting pen to paper seriously for that series. But I don't want to lose the inspiration and the things that come to me as it does. And that's why short fiction is so perfect for this. And I've actually started a series of short stories on my website. I've called it the Tales of the Fairy Shepherd series. And I'm doing this in conjunction with #blog battle. Love them. They're wonderful. You should check them out. And so every month they put up a prompt on the first Tuesday of the month, and it's just a word, one simple word. And I think their max is 1,000 words. Try to keep it under 1,000 words and write something that either uses that word or is inspired in some way by that word. And most of my short stories have come from those prompts. And so I'm kind of like challenging myself to use the prompt to continue to build on this world that I'm creating. And so while I'm not working very in depth on this series of stories yet, I'm still keeping it fresh in my mind by doing these short pieces, typically once a month. So that's something else that it can really help with.
Absolutely. And when you are developing different worlds, sometimes these can be in different genres. And so short stories are also an excellent way to see if you would enjoy writing in a particular genre.
Absolutely.
That's different than what you're writing. So Joy is coming out with a contemporary, a literary fiction, Southern Lit book in September. And that is so far from fantasy. And so in these short stories that you're writing too, it's almost like you get to try on fantasy for a little bit. That's something different than what you're writing at the moment. And that's really cool. So for me, in that aspect of it, I tried some flash fiction, guys, which is super hard, by the way. If you're doing it right, it's kind of hard. You have to write a complete story in 500 words or less, which is insane. But I was trying out the kind of thriller horror genre. It was around Halloween, and so I was like, I'm going to write some flash fiction for Halloween, and it was going to be some creepy stuff. So I started doing that, and I ended up with a flash fiction piece that I elongated into a short story piece, which some people said was pretty creepy. I did find some things that I did need in there. Like I needed more dialogue and I needed more interaction with the characters, and things like that. But I tried out some thriller/horror situation, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah. I don't know if I want to do it for long term, but it was a nice little change of pace there for a little bit. And if I would not have been able to dedicate a year to write a novel in that genre, because I don't know if that's, I'm going to need a little bit more immersion into there to see if it's something that I want to write long term. But it was fun for a little while, and it was a nice introduction to that particular genre.
Yeah, and it was very good. I will have to say that. And then, and this kind of goes, because you were talking about flash fiction and how hard it is to get in and so with so few words. But I think that's another beautiful thing about this, because when you're writing short fiction, especially when you are putting a word count limit on yourself like that, it helps us to use our words more carefully and to really think about each and every word. Really think about each word's purpose and weight in the story and its use in the story, and is it really necessary? And that's something that will translate over into longer fiction and helping you really get those good words.
Yes, and to expand on that a little bit, it also is super helpful in helping you decide what is important plot-wise, character development-wise, what is important. So if you are looking at an 8,000 word short story, something like that, and you have all these things that you want to happen, what you can look at is there any way to combine two separate things into one to make a bigger bang whenever you are writing? So if you can, intensify an emotional change in a particular scene by adding this other scene's emotional conflict to it, it is going to be so good, and also plot-wise.
So we haven't
even
finished the first of our 3 benefits.
Is this going to be a 2 or 3 parter? So Joy and I chatted, and we decided that we're going to ignore the timer. No, that's not what. Just kidding. It was a joke. We're not going to ignore the timer. We're going to go through the rest of the craft benefits of writing short fiction, and then go into a QWERTY challenge and continue this conversation in another week. So let's do that.
And we actually had almost finished the craft benefits. We had one left, yeah.
And then we'll do the QWERTY challenge.
Yeah. So the final one is to kind of hone your self-editing skills, okay? So once again, you have a shorter thing to work on. You don't have quite as many words to get through with the red pen, okay? So this is a good, quick, easier way to kind of get through those editing skills and start really improving your abilities to edit yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And when you are going through with particular grammar issues, it will be easier to remember the rules that you're looking for, and things that you do repetitively. In these short, concise periods of time, whenever you are editing, if you do those more often with short fiction, then it's going to be much better for you with your long fiction, because you will have built up knowledge in particular rules for editing. So that's my 2 cents.
Perfect.
Okay, excellent. So what we would like to challenge you to do this week is to make something. I know we do this a lot, don't we? But the whole point of the QWERTY challenge is to get your hands moving and your brain thinking, and the only way to do that is for you to make something. So we would love for you to decide on something that you are struggling in, something you want to try, something that you're curious about. It could be related to craft, particularly since this episode has turned into a craft episode. So decide something that you want to try or that you want to improve upon, and write some short fiction about it, and let us know how it goes.
Yes, and that's the most important thing, because we want to hear how it went for you.
Yes.
And then we will talk more about the other benefits of writing short fiction in our next episode.
Yep, sure will.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.